Hey, Mark, we're about 20 episodes into No Way Out. It's time to do some synthesis, to connect some dots or make some connections for people. And I happen to be in Colorado, got the opportunity to watch the Nuggets play the Lakers in game two last week. It was pretty awesome, pretty amazing to be there. But here's what I saw two flow systems, two competing nested OODA loops going against each other. And we saw it happen in game four the other night, which is pretty amazing too. But I'm going to share a couple of quotes with you from the game. This is from LeBron James, and he says, and one thing about their team, when you have a guy like Jokic, who is as big as he is, but also as cerebral as he is, you can't really make many mistakes versus a guy like that. That's one thing that LeBron James said about playing the Nuggets. Another one that he brought up here just the other night is everybody gets cracked up into the stats, but I don't think a lot of people talk about the mental part of this game. Maybe it's not talked about because a lot of people don't understand it, but I do. And he's talking about Jokic here, and he says he's special. So I want to kind of unravel this a little bit about how does this connect to flow, the OODA loop, and things like that. So here we go. So watching these two teams compete against each other, you're watching people at the peak of their skill craft, right? They have an autonomic response to how they dribble the ball, how they shoot the ball. It's built into their DNA right now. It's part of their system. And what that does is it relaxes their brain, reduces the energy spend. And this is important in flow systems, the flow states, is that brain is starting to see things slow down. If we go back to Adrian Bejan's podcast with us about the constructal law, he talks about that a little bit with Enos Hippolito, Dr. Hippolito as well. But what's happening is that implicit guidance and control pathway it doesn't require a lot of energy to do that anymore. And that allows the players to see more of what's happening around them and create mismatches or create surprise in the environment. And that's what's happening when these two teams are playing each other. And the Heat and the Celtics are doing the same thing, by the way. So it's an amazing opportunity to see flow systems live. And I feel sorry for people that actually use baseball as an analogy to a high-performing team. And the reason for that is you don't have the dynamic reallocation resources. There is a lot of technical expertise in there. It's not a high level of teaming skill. So you can jump back in your F-15 and think about that in your cockpit the next time you're talking about baseball, if you want to do that. But for us, in our world, in the Marine Corps, in fighter aviation, naval aviation, the world of hockey even, and even the world of basketball, the dynamic reallocation resources of people, ideas, and things in that order really creates an environment where you have distributed leadership, and so much more. So there's a lot of great connections that we could bring into the previous podcast to the world of basketball. But I think you have a background in another sport that has another dynamic reallocation resources. I want to throw it to you, Mark.
Yeah, so full and fair disclosure, I have not been paying close attention to the NBA as I have the NHL. As a hockey fan, being a Pittsburgh kid, sadly, my team is not there. However, I've had my eye on the Florida Panthers since day one, and they have single-handedly destroyed some of the top teams in the NHL, including the Boston Bruins that won the President's Trophy, which is, I believe they set records on the achievement of winning the most regular season games. They went on to dismantle the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they just swept the Carolina Hurricanes to go to the conference finals. Now, I brought in one of my mentors today to talk with us. So that's Coach Digit Murphy. Digit Murphy was a longtime coach of the Brown hockey team. She's an advocate for female athletes everywhere. She's a close friend, mentor, like the big sister I never had. And how I met Digit was through a mentee of mine who Digit drafted, who's one of my best students on OODA Loop. And when she started learning this by our dear friend Natalie, she realized that this stuff is all around me. It's not just in hockey. It's in hockey. It's in school. It's in investment banking where she is now. It's all over the place. And then she connected me with Digit, and Digit and I hit it off right away. And she's been let's say a pretty good scholar of John Boyd thus far. So, Digit, we want to get your opinion on what's going on with the Florida Panthers specifically. We can fill in on what's going on in the Western Conference. But as I look at it, these Panthers are tearing down giants, and the Giants are standing there saying, we have no idea what just happened to us.
Well, first of all, guys, thanks for having me. I've been in coaching since 1987. I did coach at Brown. I've coached pros. I've coached in China. I've started women's professional lacrosse, and my last two gigs were starting up the Toronto Six, which, Mark has talked about with Natalie playing for me. And then I just built the Riveters, which is down in New York. But, my history in coaching is vast. Okay. And I've coached all sorts of athletes, all the way from U12 up to like 35-year-old women. And what I saw with the Panthers in game one, because I am a huge Boston Bruins fan, and I'm like, whoa, we're going to win. We're going to win the cup. We won the President's Cup. But there is the curse of the President's Cup. I don't know if you know this, but not one team, and I'm going to tell you why, not one team has ever won a Stanley Cup after they've won the President's Cup. So there's a couple of things going on here in my mind with the OODA loop. Number one, Florida they're in the zone every game. Game one, I saw it because I do another show in Canada about the NHL. And I said, I'm going to tell you guys one thing. Florida, there's some energy going on. I don't know what it is. Boston cannot match it. And they have that. And here's what I have figured out. Why, number one, the Bruins lost. Because if you don't have a corrective, you guys would like say, there's corrections in the OODA loop. So if you win all the time, you never figure out where those corrected moves are as a coach, as a team, as people, right? You need this reaction to happen to you in order to adjust. So that can't happen when you win that many games. They won like 90 games or whatever it was, and they only lost 10. So think about all the times that Florida and their coach and their people have that corrected action. Okay, that's number one. Number two, as you hone that corrective action as a group, as a team, as a leadership model, okay, you get better and better at it. And you don't even have to talk about it. You feel it. And I'm going to tell you, I bet you dollars to donuts that Paul Maurice, here's what he does. He says to Tkachuk, his top player, and forget it, they got Bobrovsky in the zone. They've got Tkachuk just having at it, okay? He says to Tkachuk, you know what, Tkachuk? When you want to go out, go out. I'm telling you, that's what he does as a coach. That's what I would do. I say, you're my top player. Okay, I don't know if you guys know a lot about hockey, but there's a lot of stuff going on in hockey. And Mark and I get together because we operate in chaos. Like when you're on the bench, you have to zone in because water bottles are flying. Refs are over there yelling at you. Kids are going down with injuries. And there's all sorts of, you guys, it's like battle. Bombs are going off, right? So you have to be in the zone. So I guarantee when your top lieutenant or your captain and your general in the Army is in their zone, you're going, you got this. You go, boy. Okay. So Paul Maurice, as the coach, says to Tkachuk. Tkachuk has scored 3 overtime goals in playoffs. He just scored the game winner with 4 seconds left in the game that we just saw. He says to Tkachuk, just go out whenever you want. Go over the boards. When there's a whistle, you go. Okay. And here's what happens. The rest of the people fall in line. The rest of the teammates, because his line is the leader. So if there's an offensive zone face-off, okay, boom, Tkachuk is out there. And if you watch his line shifts, he's out there every other or every third, but he gets to embrace that energy and that leadership. And then he can act on his body of, okay, I'm a little tired. I'm not going to go out now. So it gives him the ability to drive his own car, drive his own plane, whatever it is. So I could go on and on about this, but
so Digit,
that's a little bit of what I'm thinking.
So as the layman, as the fan watching this, and I stand there and I, of course I apply looking at everything through a Boydian lens. I'm looking at the other teams, whether it was Boston, whether it was the Maple Leafs, and now the Hurricanes. They simply don't look like they know what game they're playing. You can see them blaming each other. You can see them just breaking down and melting and hitting their stick and getting dumb penalties. But it's as if, and I just threw up on the screen here. We've talked about this several times with others around other events like the Super Bowl and the NCAA bracket. This concept of fast transients. The idea of fast transit suggests that in order to win, we should operate at a faster tempo or rhythm than our adversaries, or better yet, get inside our adversaries' OODA loop. And you're just seeing it happen because, as it says, that kind of activity makes us appear mystifying, ambiguous, unpredictable, generating confusion and disorder. And one of the things when Ponch and I look at games like this, yeah, we see the side winning and they're experiencing free and independent action. But the other thing we're paying attention to is look at the other team. They just don't know what's going on. They don't know what happened. They don't understand that they're playing hockey at that point.
And this is why it happens. Okay. It's called disruption. All right. If you play at a high level of intensity, okay, my teams play like this all the time. I used to be the dumbest coach in the world because I used to say, oh, defense wins championships. No way. Offense wins championship because you have to make the opponent, okay, have the puck at a less time than than you do. Okay. So you want to own the puck. And owning the puck in hockey means controlling the offense. So when the other team has the puck, they're controlling the offense. You're on defense. Get it? Now, if you can disrupt their ability to own the puck, and then you own the puck, you're automatically on offense. So you have to disrupt their offensive flow as much as you can in order to play the game. Because the more you have the puck, the more you're scoring. So what you're seeing, Mark and Punch, is you're seeing this crazy ass forecheck that Carolina had no answer to last night, because you watch 3 guys and sometimes 5 guys operating in this beautiful, I call it Tasmanian tornado type energy that's under control. One last thing I'm going to say about that. What Carolina does best is on the PK, they move 4 people as one unit. So they do the same thing that they should be doing on offense. They do it on defense on the PK when they're in the penalty kill. You will see them moving together as one. So if one guy misses the puck, the next guy goes and gets it, and then he ices it down. That's the PK beauty of the Panthers, of the Hurricanes.
So Digit, you're speaking Ponch's language, and I'm sure he has a couple of questions. He's got.
I do actually. So here we go. So the disruption, surprise, mismatches, right? This is we're going to go back to the basic functioning of how we perceive reality. Our jobs as humans is to minimize surprise, the way our brains work. We don't like surprise, right? And the 2 ways we do this, number one, is we can adapt our internal model, our orientation to what's happening on the outside. The other way to change that type of thinking is to act on the world in a way that reduces that surprise. So put your internal model and go, this is what needs to happen. But there's a really, really important point here. The external environment controls us. So even if we have something that we think we can put into that external environment and we get feedback from it, and feedback is that's not working, generally you break down. And I saw this at the Lakers on Game 4. You could see them going into the third quarter. You can see this when a team is really in a state of flow. And I think that's what you're getting at with the Panthers, is you're allowing the facilitator of flow to do that job, right? To go out there and actually facilitate when it's time to execute and when it's time to kind of throttle back, when it's time to emit that surprise or inject some surprise into the environment. Is that about how you think about this as well?
It is. The reason I was talking about the way that Kachuk can go out when he wants is more a coaching philosophy and an empowerment strategy. But to your point, it does work that way. I do think that element of surprise and that fast get on the puck system that Paul Maurice plays works. Okay, because of what you said. Now you got me thinking about something entirely different. I'm going to throw it out at you. I want to say, what makes certain people resilient to the environment that's thrown at them? Because, I think that sports is a microcosm of life, right? And there are certain people that get rattled. They're like, oh my God, this is rattling me. And there's certain people that are like, yep, that's just normal. That's just normal. It's my world of the environment not working for me. What makes people continue to be resilient in an environment that doesn't accept them? And I think when you start to look at that, you're going to start to see marginalized population, women, like these are the kind of things that leaders in different areas of, let's just say, entitlement, they're not entitled. They have been resilient in a world where it says, okay, gay people, you guys should just go get, whatever, what is it, therapy, gender therapy, or, racism, we're against, people of different color. And there's certain leaders that rise above even though their environment's against them. I have to ask you, what makes resilience? I'm going to turn it back on the OODA loop. Why is it in
Yeah.
life happening?
Well, it's necessary for survival, right? If you resist the external environment, there's two things that are happening. One, you have to adapt to the external environment. It controls you. It controls who you are. It should. The other side of that is if your internal model is such that you think the world needs to be a certain way, when you try to inject your actions on that environment, and and the feedback you receive says we're not ready for it, it's not an adjacent possible. You need to, and it goes back to that earlier part where you talked about teams that are actually losing can become more resilient. It's okay to cut your losses and go, okay, I can come back another day and fight. So imagine you're down in a game and you realize, yeah, I'm down. I get it. I'm going to take my lessons from this. I'm going to learn and apply it next time. That's the way people need to think it. And sometimes you have to go, okay, I'm not winning here. I have to learn how to not turn and run, but just kind of ease off the gas a little bit and go, okay, it's not going to happen today. I get it. Right. And that's what's going to make you resilient in this organ, or, when you think about the OODA
This
loop
world.
yeah, it's that internal model that going back and forth between what does the external environment tell me, what's my internal map telling me, and where am I wrong? It's not and this is important in the market too. The market's not wrong, right? The market's never wrong. You're wrong, right? It's the same thing in the environment. The environment's never wrong. You're wrong. Mark, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, control comes from the outside in, right? It goes from the outside in, bottom up, and when we can't change our model and our perception of the world, what ends up happening is there's a mismatch, and that's a very Boyd term. So think back to now, just if we dial it back to hockey, but as Digi just pointed out, it's applicable only where humans make decisions. It doesn't matter. When you understand the concept of mismatches, when you understand that your perception, if it's misaligned with what's actually going on, that's where the problem is. And that's on us. That's on the individual. That's on us to try to figure out why that mismatch is occurring. What can happen negatively is we decide to force everything. What we say is, no, you have to allow for a state of flow. If there's no flow, then you're out of harmony with the universe. You're constantly in cacophony because you're forcing something that otherwise you're trying to perpetuate the mismatch that you see, thinking that everybody else is going to see it exactly your way. So again, go back to these games where you can see the players, whether it's basketball, whether it's hockey, but it can also be business. They stand there stupefied, going in circles. They don't know what happened to them. Sometimes they don't even realize what game they're playing anymore.
But reorienting, I think. Let me just interrupt here a little bit. Reorienting sometimes is viewed. We're seeing it like they're going around in circles. Maybe it's a good thing, and I think that a lot of people get very anxious and nervous because that energy isn't what they think it should be, and they look at it like I heard you just say, it's wrong. It's a problem. You know what? Sometimes it's not a problem. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction. And I think that as we adjust toward that flow state, maybe we can teach people that they're just not in their right energy pod.
I think, So now I have a better. So really, what it is what we do professionally, right? It's helping people build confidence and complexity, because everything that they're going to deal with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 366 every fourth year, is complexity. They're awash in it. So if we can help them understand it with learning how to think within complexity. Learning how to do distributed leadership, like you were saying about Kachuk. When he wants to go in, he can go in. Well, that's a distributed leadership model. That's giving the power not just to the top, to the leader, to the coach, but also to the leader on the ice. And then the third thing, the team science, and that's what you were talking about, that implicit communication, that understanding of each other, that finishing a game and then going through thorough debrief. What did we learn? What can we do differently next time? Where we're attacking the outcome, the play, what we write on the whiteboard, not each other. And through that whole process, we build stronger cohesion. We build stronger neural networks within our own body, within our own team, and we become an organism. That's natural. That's flow. not automechanic, not automatonic, not I'm the coach. Scotty Bowman trained me this way, and this is the way we're always going to do it. And it worked for the the Leafs in '67, and doggone it, we're going to keep doing it this way. And if it didn't work, we're just going to double, triple down. We're just going to force it harder. It's not how you do it.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that as you look at sports as a microcosm of life, you see so many of these lessons. And one of the things that you just hit on was the right people being in your organization. And I think a lot of people don't understand that a mission driven organization, in war, it's life or death, right? You better be on the bus or you're freaking dying. So that's like the ultimate. But as you're building a team, it's essential that communication and everyone is understanding it, and that you have the right people on the bus. I'm going to transition though over to women's sports, and I'm going to tell you
quick question though. Just on stay on current events. One last question. So as you observe the Panthers and what they've done from the beginning of sneaking into the playoffs with a wild card slot, and then taking down some of the Titans in the conference, is that what you're observing?
Absolutely, and I think that they are becoming stronger with the confidence that they are, playing with. And again, once you get in that flow, you guys just talked about flow the whole time. Like I used to go, one of the reasons why Mark and I got connected was my philosophy. You guys are going to die. The philosophy when I coach is flex and flow. You got to flex and flow. It's crazy. Like the connection that Mark and I had, right? Because it's so real and it's palpable and it's energy. And so many people think there's a system that you do X and Y and Z happen. And that is exactly what does not happen in hockey. And to your point, in baseball, it's technical. It could happen that way, but no way in hockey, no way in basketball. Basketball is a little more, but it's a great.
You did it. You said the E word. You said energy. You said energy. So tying it back to Boyd really quick, he's the postulator of energy maneuverability theory. The ability to pump and dump energy as the scenario and the situation requires. It seems to me, now let me ask you this. When you look at teams, any team, but when you're looking at the Panthers, say, or the teams that you've coached, the ability to gain and lose energy as the situation requires, to pump energy or to dump energy. How do you see that when you look at this team as they continue to advance on? And what would you want to see from them in the finals?
Well, I don't think they're doing anything wrong, and here's why: because they are in that state of flow. You talked about it, and one of the things that I loved in Paul Maurice's leadership, like between periods. Okay, you're gonna love this. They're getting outshot 13-1, 13-1, right? And you know what he says? And, the lady goes up and he's like, hey, Emma, blah, blah, blah. Starts talking to the guy. He's like, hey, we got this. He's like, we're weathering the storm, right? We're blocking shots. They're not scoring on us. Oh, and by the way, we're in an enemy rink. Like we're in their rink. So we are doing great. What does that say? It says, number one, he has confidence in his team because they can hear him. He's like, talking right there. And number two, he's not getting rattled. He himself is in the state of flow. And I really believe that I was the worst coach, you guys, when I was young. I was out of my mind. I'm going crazy. Rah, rah, rah. My team went crazy. Okay. But as I've gotten older, hey guys, it's all good. Let it happen. Flex and flow. We'll adjust. You guys are awesome. So I like where they're at. I don't think they have to add more energy or reduce it, but I will say that Vegas, if they play them, Vegas is going to have to match their energy. And granted, they still have to play Dallas to get into the Stanley Cup final, but Vegas may need to up their energy because their goaltending isn't as good, so they're going to have to keep it down in the Panther zone a lot longer. That's what I see.
Did you, when you contrast those two, and again, this is a layman looking at it as a fan, it seems to me on the other side, when I saw Vegas, the one I paid really close attention to was Vegas versus Edmonton, because I thought for sure Edmonton was going to knock them out.
Me too.
And one of the reasons that I thought that they were going to get knocked out by Edmonton was when Edmonton was in that flow state, when Edmonton was having their way on Vegas, you saw a lot of implosions and a lot of just dumb penalties and I don't remember if they had any major or minors, but or what the readout on that was, but like you could just see like just stupid things happening. And I thought, well, there's no way they're going to win because they're self-destructing.
You know what
They
they did?
changed it. They
They
reoriented.
changed it. Number one, they reoriented, and here's what happened. I thought for sure Edmonton was going to win. Vegas is my team because I like Bruce Cassidy. He used to coach the Bruins, right? I love him as a coach. And what I saw him do was they threw a tsunami of energy at Vegas. Okay, just massive, massive amounts of energy. And Vegas broke a little bit. But what Bruce Cassidy did was he created a defensive structure that forced Edmonton's energy away from it. So you will look at 5 guys coming back. You will look at all the shots coming from outside the house, if you will. And Bruce Cassidy came in to put more structure in their mindset. So they've already played that type of game. He just had to remind them of how to ratchet up their defensive structure so that they could challenge Edmonton's energy. And that's what they did. So that's a great point about Edmonton, because I thought for sure they were going to win. But
yeah, I was stunned, honestly. I thought that they were much more together. Yeah. I know Ponch has some questions about that.
Ponch, go ahead. Sorry, we're like talking.
No, it's all right,
back and forth with hockey.
Digit, you're on a path to talk about women's sports, girls' sports here in a moment. Before you do, there's something I noticed in the basketball, championships over the last couple of weeks, and that is athletes talking about meditation. What they're going to do tonight, meditate. Is that happening in hockey as well? And if not, what are you seeing as a potential for building higher performing teams?
I will say that I coach women's sports, okay, and as women, I think we're very in tune to our bodies from a physical and mental capacity. I see our players doing things like having vegan diets, really like leaning into the health and wellness component. And I'm not going to say it's not how guys think. I'm just going to say women are over the top on that. So yes, I do see that coming into play. However, not as much on the mental side as the physical side, but they definitely they do the meditation, and they do definitely keep up with their body types, and they're very aware. Like women are aware of everything, you guys. Like I could walk into a locker room. No, it's no joke. It's kind of like when your mom has your eyes behind the head and like she knows what you're doing even when you don't. And as like my sons, I'd be like, "Hey, get your hand out of the cookie jar," and they'd be like, "How'd you see that?" But it's just like you need to see it. So I think the women are very aware of what they need to do to reduce their anxiety or their flow state.
So we've talked about this a million times, and that's how I met you in the first place. And I had always asked your advice on this, and you always give me great advice on this. Why is it that in general, it seems women in athletic roles, in leadership roles, in executive roles, even in military roles, they really seem to get John Boyd, and they really seem to have more of an interest. They really seem to ask a lot more questions. And, in full disclosure, Ponch and I are, my daughters are both year-round athletes, and Ponch's daughters are basketball players. They get it. What is it that you've shared with me before? Why things like OODA and things like flow? Why do they want to learn more? Why is it that it seems that it appeals to women, and the Boyd theories appeal to women and women athletes and those kind of roles?
So here's my theory. Okay, you might think it's a little crazy, but first of all, I think the women in this generation of athletes are intellectually curious. Okay. And I think that as we've evolved women athletes, education is really important. Okay. It's really important to get your scholarships. It's important. Like parents have kind of put women on this educational and athletic track. I would say more than their boys, because you can go to the NHL. You don't even need to go to college literally to go to the NHL if you're good. Okay. And I think that, obviously you should put your boys and your girls in school and have education, but you don't necessarily have to. So men's sports has evolved into being a lot more, a lot less educational, because you'll have guys that are just in junior hockey that didn't even go to college. So I don't think they're as intellectually curious. Okay. That's number one. Number two, you're dealing with, testosterone, ego, like everything that guys have that, not that women don't have, but women have lesser than. We are not as physically strong as men. Okay. We have to act collectively and collaboratively to survive. Okay. So when you start to look at how physically we're made, we need that intellectual mindset to survive. So I think that would be my take on it. And we're just really freaking smart as a gender, and I just think we're like undervalued. That's just
Well,
me.
I think it's funny, like some of the best Boyd conversations I've ever had have come from females I know that are women that I know that are fighter pilots, and they totally get it and understand it, but also women executives and leaders. And it would be interesting, John Boyd died in 1997, and right about 97, Punch, correct me if I'm wrong on the dates, 97 was when women were more doors were being opened to them, that they were allowed to serve on combat ships in the Navy, they were allowed to serve in combat units in fighter aviation. And one of the things that we say a lot on the show is, boy, what if Boyd had lived another 10 or 15 years and didn't die at age 70? Knowing him, knowing the scope of his work, knowing his delving into complexity and evolutionary biology, I would have to think that that would have been a big part of the evolution of his theories. Now that it wasn't just men in combat, men in war, it was the much broader universal picture that we find in complexity every day. What do you think, Ponch?
Well, when we went in the archives, we found some of the articles where Boyd was looking at the differences between men and women's brains, right? Which we had Dr. McCabe on to talk about. There is a difference biologically. So everything that Digit pointed out, I have to agree with, because I have the two daughters, and they're playing sports year round, and we use basketball and swimming to help them understand they have to do the work. And by the way, the same lessons we teach our kids: you have to put the work in. You have to do the work. It's exactly the same message we tell organizations when they want to learn new ways of working. So I'm with you on this, and it's amazing to see the women leaders that I've been in and around within corporate America, how they gravitate to this type of thinking, this type of cerebral thinking about internal maps versus external environment, the mental, physical, the moral aspect, and even uh, Mark, that some fighter pilots don't understand Boyd. Some of the guys out
Well,
there
that's true
flapping their
too.
gums out there right now, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, I would add to that and say that when we sit down with people that think they know Boyd and it turns out to be only at a superficial level, the deeper that you delve into it, and Digit, what Ponch is alluding to is that a lot of people reduce John Boyd to the OODA loop, and it's just a simple 4-step tactical process that he invented as a fighter pilot, as a young officer, and it's completely, patently not how it happened at all. OODA is not even an end result, because it's an evolving result that we're dedicated to continue to evolving, that he came up with after 40 and 50 years of multidisciplinary study across every single area. And he was also very quick to let go of things when he realized that he was wrong. His opinions and ideas were all loosely held. He could drop it really quick and move on to the next thing. But yeah, we think that that's where, as Ponch said, when people do the work, and a lot of the athletes, Digit, that I've met through you, they're willing to do the work, and I think that's another reason why they tend to get it, or they understand that they have to continue the process of learning, and they can be very effective with it ongoing, and others can emulate them because they're teaching principles, they're demonstrating principles, they're showing principles that we're all subject to. And that's where the name of our show comes from, Digit. There's no way out of
Love
the
it.
requirement to continue to reorient, to continue to revise and update your models because of entropy and imprecision and quantum uncertainty and volatility and ambiguity. Like, there's no way out of reorienting if you want to survive on your own terms, and if you want to thrive in volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environments. And you're as good as any that we know that are thinking these things, and you've taught, now it's, not to date you, but you're saying,
I'm
you've taught
old.
generations of leaders these ideas in your own way, and we're glad to have you on the mission with us too, with Boyd.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, and just it's interesting. I love that you can apply sports to life. It's something that I've dedicated my life to, and I didn't even know it. I was talking about this. It's not about sports, it's about life. When I just started coaching at Brown, because without sports I wouldn't be doing what I do, right? I mean, I was lucky enough to go to an Ivy League school because I played ice hockey. I was part of the first recruited class at Cornell University. And now when you start to look back on
Hold
your
that thought.
legacy.
Talk about the evolution of that, Digit. When you came into women's sports as a collegiate athlete, as an NCAA Division I athlete, how many schools were playing ice hockey?
11.
11. How many now
11.
today?
Well, there's 43 schools that support Division I women's hockey, and there's over 300 Division III schools, and there are probably over 250 club programs. So, you know,
That's evolutionary.
it's
That's phenomenal.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And, you know, without women like myself or women that came before us to even like strap on the pads and the blades. And, you know, it's funny, you guys are talking about how many years I've been doing this. I swear to God, I was doing it on the playground at age 8 with the boys, you know, reorienting them because they were knuckleheads. And I was the coach of their team because they just, you know, we weren't winning unless I was like, hey guys, like put it up in the air. I'll like crank it and I'll score, you know, whatever it was, but you're constantly coaching. So I just feel very fortunate, you know, to be able to now, even talking to you guys, be able to be a woman, be a leader that's been in the space for this long, and then apply sports from a technical flow level to where you guys are. So I just can't thank you enough for having me on the show.
Yeah, Digit, we want to, you know, we're fortunate to have you on our show today. This was a hate to call it a last minute idea, but it really was. Mark and I have been talking about just doing a quick lean Kanban type of approach where we identify a few current events and talk about them. Hockey came up. You made a phone call. Here you are talking with us, which is an incredible opportunity.
Let's do more.
But that's my
Let's
point.
do more.
We need to do a deeper dive with you into coaching and pull some ideas from you to make some interesting connections. So, Mark, thanks for setting this up. Moose, thanks for setting this up. And Digit, I'm sure we'll see you real soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Digit.